any attendees.
Yeah,
Oh,
We're good to go. You might want to start over.
okay.
you know what? Let's start over.
Sounds good. All right.
We have attendees.
I'll give it a minute. We got attendees flooding in now. We had a quick IT hiccup. All right. From the beginning, officially, I call the October 11th, 2023 Bremerton City Council study session to order. Study sessions are always open for the public to attend in person, or you may choose to listen and view remotely, but there are no opportunities for input. The content of these items is subject to change and no action is anticipated. Any of the items approved for action by the council tonight will be placed on the October 18th, 2023 City Council meeting agenda or as otherwise determined. Zoom recordings of study sessions will also be available online within a few days following the meeting. I am chairing remotely and Councilmember Dennehy is absent. If anything happens to me, Council Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain will take over. All right, first up for item A1, I invited Paul Dutky, who was a former Parks and Recreation Commission Vice Chair, to provide an update on two different recommendations that the Parks and Rec Commission sent us that might be helpful during upcoming budget workshops. By the Bremerton Municipal Code, the Parks and Recreation Commission is tasked with a number of items, including bringing recommendations to council and giving input on all sorts of items, including programs, Parks Department projects, and budget. So I had planned on inviting Mr. Dutky soon anyway, once we had a not too crazy study session, but since we're losing him on the Parks Commission, even better timing. You know, when I was on Planning Commission, I came a few times to present the council for Planning Commission recommendations. So with that said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Dutky, and I will go ahead and share council packet if that's helpful, Mr. Dutky, if that's needed.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so go ahead and well, let me make sure I can share this just fine.
You should have speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so basically my talk is going to follow along with the agenda packet. Hello, President Coughlin and Bremerton City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Paul Dutky, resident of Bremerton. I have served on the Bremerton Parks Commission for District 7 for the past 2 years. I've given photo essays to the Parks Commission on a handful of Bremerton parks to better understand each park and how they might be improved. These presentations include Pendergast, NAD Seroptimus, and Marine Parks, Pat Carey, Sheridan, Downtown Plazas, and Harborside Fountain Park, Upper Roto Vista, Arbonne, and Forest Ridge Park. I've met, hiked, and conversed with neighbors in all of these parks and learned their concerns. In your council packet today, between pages 3 and 98, you have information collected over the last 6 months that the Parks Commissioners felt by unanimous vote was important enough to send to you, park staff, and the mayor. We have by ordinance a responsibility and duty to advise you on the budget, short and long-term goals, capital improvement planning, and long-term maintenance. The Parks Commissioners are unwavering in their belief that the Parks Department is performing exceptionally well for the citizens of Bremerton, given its limited staff and limited funds. However, the department's bandwidth, its ability to complete projects on its priority list or do necessary maintenance throughout the park system is severely limited, and improvements are often years away. Today's information packet highlights problems due to a lack of funding. So if we can advance to page 5. So here's one of the commissions, one of the 2 that we sent to the council, an advisory recommendation. It says the Bremerton Parks Commission recommends the city provide annual dedicated funding for the Parks Department sufficient to meet all of its responsibilities, including maintenance of its forested properties and park and plaza landscaping, as well as removal of invasive species. And the photo essays I've included will address that. But if you move to page 6. So for context, I've included an excerpt from a 2013 Kitsap Sun article. And basically it shows that the funding crisis for the Bremerton Parks Department is not new. And I want to include some excerpts which sound strangely relevant to today. And I'm just going to read from that article. Several prominent rebuilds of local parks, including Blueberry, the Beachfront Lions Park, and Kiwanis Park in Union Hill, were funded by outside grant dollars, but there's no way to maintain those new assets long-term, and they're at risk of atrophy in the future. On a staff the size of what it was in 1977, The city's added 17 more parks properties to maintain since then. The situation is in a crisis, according to Kerry Bozeman. My message to the city council, the stewards of the budget, is that they can no longer believe that they can maintain the park system on the revenue available. In devaluing that system, you are devaluing the community, he said. Budgets used to contain money for playground replacements and roof maintenance. Budgets used to contain money for playground replacements and roof maintenance. Lawns got watered and flower beds weeded. The Sheridan Community Center on Lebo Boulevard alone has a $1 million in maintenance needs, and that was determined in a study from the late 1990s. Today, the staff can only do so much. Many weeds go unabated. Some parks don't get watered. Long-term maintenance, like replacing roofs, has gone unchecked. There are 31 parks around the city. That comes to 17 playgrounds, 14 sports fields, 12 fountains, 18 restrooms, 14 picnic shelters, 22 parking lots, and more. Quote, we're busting hump just to get by, said one of the park service workers. And it's Mr. Volpe, who I believe still works for parks. Our parks draw the community together, Wheeler said. They create neighborhood pride. Though it's a tough nut to crack, he's optimistic that because of that, they'll find a way to keep the parks from falling into disarray. Quote, we're going to come to a solution, unquote, he said. And that was the end of the article. So if you move on to page 14. Okay, so today there is no long-term dedicated park funding, and there has been no levy or tax increase to benefit parks in 20 years. The demands on park staff have grown substantially due to encampments on parks property and confrontations with individuals with mental health problems. The solutions that Council President Greg Wheeler in 2013 felt would materialize haven't. And to back this up somewhat, I have minutes written by staff from the Parks Commission meeting on July 25th. And I just want to read these to you. They sound strangely like we just read from 2013. That's not, okay. Director Elbato, staffing needs have changed drastically due to current circumstances, increased demands. For example, staff now team up in pairs to open and close restrooms due to safety concerns. And there are more hours spent on repairs due to vandalism and reporting and cleaning up encampments. And Mr. Mutek, the head of their maintenance department, maintenance foreman, chimed in. This is in the minutes. He emphasized that their job is 365 days a year, 7 days a week, from dawn to dusk, and they simply don't have enough boots on the ground to get everything. Commissioner Dutky asked how many people are needed now due to increased demand, and Director Alvato said it could easily be 10. In the meantime, the department is short-staffed. Current staff are burnt out. So I want to recommend to the council members here that walk through any park in Bremerton with Mr. Mutek would show his commitment and concern for Bremerton parks. He has a deep understanding of what is necessary to bring them back. So if you'll scroll down to page 16 slowly, I guess this is the beginning of a Forest Ridge Park photo essay that I gave. So Kathy Weigel is the chief volunteer steward at Forest Ridge Park and joined the Parks Commission late last year. At her first meeting, she didn't want to say much, but she said to the commission that she was passionate about her park and had concerns that she wanted to address at some time. I asked her to walk the park with me and show me what those concerns were. The photo essay that follows were taken during that walk. I just met Kathy and we walked through the park and I took pictures. She and I recently collaborated to create an updated map of all the park's trails, and we gave the trails tentative names and identified numerous paths that we feel could be decommissioned to prevent unnecessary erosion. Director Elvato has said he will walk the park with us to identify those the department feels are harmful, so she and I are still collaborating. So as you go on, I will say that when we gave this presentation, actually the Parks Department responded by correcting many of these deficiencies, but this was just a once-off walk through the park spontaneously. So if you'll continue to scroll down slowly to page 30, these are we just paint inconsistencies that would be easy to correct. It's the bench near the tennis court. There's no sign here to say no through street. That was added after this presentation. There's parking in places that should be actually forest road. So, This just shows you the problems with ivy climbing trees and trees that fall down in the paths, and they need to collect these things and keep the paths open. We just ran across this because we were walking through the park, and we ran across probably 6 different encampment sites. And Kathy cleans these up, and they bring in, the Parks Department is very responsive to collecting the debris, but there's often shit, debris, needles, drug paraphernalia. So they've been taught how to manage that, but it's getting to be quite demanding. So I'll go on with my statement here. Commissioner Weigel states that collecting trash is becoming an insurmountable task for her crew of volunteers, and not infrequently involved collecting drug paraphernalia. Staff recently moved several trash cans in the park due to dumping, but this results in even more trash to pick up. Staff replaced a few trash cans at her request, but good solutions are hard to come by now. She feels she is reaching the limit of what she can give, though she dearly loves Forest Ridge Park. So on page 36, I think it's back the one before that, actually. Maybe. There's a picture of there's several images.
Let me try going 2 more. This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Commissioner Greg Dawson, Josh Farley, and I organized a cleanup day with 15 volunteers for 2 hours to remove invasive holly from the park and skirt the tree trunks to free them from damaging ivy. There's currently no park volunteer coordinator. I spent most of my time exposing foundations from an old World War II building that I feel should be removed due to safety concerns. I'll show those shortly. So you can scroll slowly through, but you can see we took out trees 5 inches in diameter that are holly. It's all invasive, and it obscured. Now this is after clearing this part of the park. You can actually look through the park and see through the understory, and which you couldn't do before. I cleaned off the ivy to show the foundations there. There's a lot of nails exposed. And we skirted the trees. And you can see the 3-inch wide ivy climbing the tree. In the next picture, you'll see that's removed, and you can actually see the parks building behind there now. So, Commissioner, okay, where was I? So we're going to just scroll slowly through page 55. So you can see that it would be worthwhile to remove these structures in the park. And they were covered with ivy, but if you were to walk or climb around here, you're liable to get an injury.
Is this by Stevenson Canyon? Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, it's on the east side of the highway, and Stevenson Canyon is on the west side.
Okay.
This is
Gotcha.
behind the community center.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All
So,
right. Next slide.
Okay, so are we on page?
There's 55.
Yeah. So this is a poster that was shown in the public meeting for the Warren Avenue Bridge Multimodal Improvement Project. It's the first public meeting after a lot of other meetings with stakeholders. But this is what they showed the public, and they show a path in the lower path there through Sheridan Park. There's kind of a switchback trail that comes out of the bridge. The council approved a contract to study design concepts for shared use paths on the bridge and multimodal community connections off the bridge. The poster is from June 12, 2023, and it shows a design that Public Works first presented in November 30th of 2022. The connection through Sheridan Park is shown in the lower half of the poster. And then on this is my drawing to simplify what you're seeing. So the idea of connecting to Juniper Street is an excellent one off the bridge, which we hadn't thought of before. Otherwise, you run into the off ramp for Claire and the off ramp for Callahan, and you run into all these high speed roads that limit your ability to go north. But if you get off the bridge right here, you can take Juniper Street and then go directly walk or bicycle over to the Lower Wheaton Way, which is planned to have bike lanes that would go all the way north to Riddell. So, but 20% of the forest about would be taken out by the structure. So in January,
Mr. Dutky, when you say this structure, do you mean the winding?
the
route?
winding path
Thank you.
would actually remove forest, and it would regrade that whole hillside.
Thank you.
And from, okay, so that's page 57. So the design concept, the bike club sent to Mayor Wheeler and Public Works after the original, this design was shown at the November meeting. In January, we sent them a concept for a trail that looked like the one in the dark blue. I'll just briefly discuss the advantages of this. So what happens if you come off the bridge, you would take a shared use path. You would take that path right through the foundational structures and remove them. And then you would be inside the park property where it's currently paved, and you could put a 12-foot path right under trees in the park property to Claire. Claire Avenue is 36 feet wide. There's plenty of room to widen the sidewalk, which is degenerative narrow on Claire, widen it out to 10 or 12 feet. So this would shorten the route from the lower right-hand corner up to the bridge that people would take for the two bridges loop. It would shorten it about 20%, and this route is completely ADA compliant. So at a meeting, so we asked, we sent our concept to Mayor Wheeler. He asked us to meet with Public Works and discuss our proposal. So myself and two other representatives from the bike club showed up, and we were told by staff that our concept was superior to that shown to the stakeholders, but due to budgetary constraints, staff would only consider on-bridge improvements, and so there was no opportunity to discuss any of our proposals to staff. So I brought the West Sound proposal, the bike club's proposal, to Sheridan Park, to the Parks Commission for discussion shortly after the public open house in June. It was never shown to council, the stakeholders committee, or the public, but it offers many advantages. It would preserve the park's forest, remove old foundations, create a shared use path through the park that would be shorter and safer than that proposed by Public Works, and it would improve and widen the sidewalk bordering the east side of Sheridan Park on Clare Avenue. In addition, by preserving forest, a dirt nature trail could be created by volunteers between Lebo and the bridge as an alternative to the shared use path through the forest that you're preserving. Increased public use in the northeast quadrant of the park could discourage the homeless encampments that now occupy that area. These park improvements could be implemented with transportation funding dollars the Parks Department does not have right now. And this proposal, although it can't be funded with the initial funding for the Warren Avenue Bridge at this time, it's the next thing up. You need the community connections. So we still think it's important that this be shown. So the Parks Commissioners voted unanimously to forward this design option for a Sheridan Park, Warren Avenue Bridge community connection to the council. The purpose of supporting this design, another design concept for the northeast corner of the bridge, was and is to engage in a community dialogue where the final outcome is better than the original idea. The Parks Commissioners knew nothing about Public Works proposal for Sheridan Park until the June 27th Parks Commission meeting when I brought it up, 7 months after the concept was presented by the administration. Our Parks Commissioners would add value to any proposals that significantly affect Bremerton Parks. Their action to support an alternative multimodal connector through Sheridan Park will hopefully re-engage the community in Warren Avenue Bridge planning. So then you can we'll continue down to page 68.
And just to check on time, we're about 15-20 minutes in, so just asking if we're close to the end.
I have very little left. I have two
Okay,
paragraphs.
perfect. Thank you.
So when Park Commissioner Jim McDonald brought a photograph of a dead tree at the Kitsap Conference Center to a Parks Commission meeting, there followed a discussion of the great need to replace many of the trees downtown but there was no budget item for this kind of long-term maintenance. Staff estimated it would cost $27,000, and you can keep kind of cooking down to page 68. These to replace the dying trees. So I followed up Jim's discussion with a photo essay walking downtown, looking at the landscaping, and I found the dead tree that he had talked about. It had been removed, but not replaced. So I just briefly, we can just keep scrolling, and you'll look at some of the problems with. We're not there yet with the downtown area. So you can see that there's problems with some of these trees in the planter boxes. They're all kind of sick. You can keep going a little bit slowly. And this one's cut down because it was dead. But the other ones also have problems. We just keep scrolling through here. So Steve Mutek had said that there's difficulty with the trees when they got them. They weren't that healthy. And also in the Harborside Fountain Park, there's actually a brown field 2 feet below the dirt that they have there, and that they have to get special permission to actually dig down. So replacing the planters, breaking the trees in the planters without breaking the planters, and replacing the trees in the park, all of that is not an easy thing to accomplish and would require long-term maintenance funding for that. So there's one more slide and a closing remark. And we would just keep going to page 98. Much of this, by the way, was cleaned up when spring came. They did a good job of weeding, but the trees still aren't healthy. So the next slide. Okay, keep going. That's the proposal for this path. And I just wanted to show you that you could get a fairly even grade path from Level Boulevard in the rough yellow line on the left side of the screen that would connect to the shared use path. That could be a nature trail. So in closing, the Parks Department budget over the last decade has not kept up with the growth of other departments in the city. And this at a time when demands on the Parks Department staff have staggeringly increased. This has had a negative effect on the health of our parks, forests, and planted areas, and delayed implementation of many park improvements. And that's my presentation. Thank you for letting me go over here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Dutky. Much appreciated. Council, we've got a big agenda tonight, but any real quick questions from Mr. Dutky on the presentation? Yes, Denise.
Not a quick question, just a quick thank you.
Oh, okay.
A thank you for your expertise and passion that you brought, and the things that you brought to light. We promise you they will stay in the light. And I can't speak for the rest of these people. So
Yes.
yeah, I promise you. Thank you, Paul.
Excellent. All right. Oh, yes, Anna. Make that the last
Thanks,
one.
Jeff. Thanks. Thank you for your service. This is something we say all the time. You did some really good deep dives, and many people on council appreciate your commitment and your hard work. Thank you.
There we go. All right. Seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and move to item A2. Give me one sec. I got lost the screen sharing.